Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I have an update for you guys regarding the story I put out a few days ago about FEMA denying aid to Trump supporters in Florida. Now I had some people commenting on that video saying that I was spreading misinformation and fake news despite including the FEMA apology in that video, so clearly it was a case of people not actually watching the video, which is normally what the complaints in the comments amount to. Now the clips that I'm about to show you are an interesting plot twist. I'm not sure how much I believe it, at least these particular accusations, as Marnie Washington goes so far as to claim that no trespassing signs and purple paint are somehow a legal license to shoot FEMA workers, but I'll lay it all out for you to decide. So, Marnie Washington is the woman who FEMA fired on Saturday, November 9th, after a whistleblower leaked internal communications to the Daily Wire, revealing that Washington, as a FEMA supervisor, had ordered her team to avoid homes with Trump signs and flags when canvassing the area for disaster relief. As a result, almost 24 homes in her area were denied aid because of their open political affiliations. For the full story, you can check out that video up here. Now, after this story came out, Washington was quick to delete social media and her LinkedIn profile, which had shown her being a FEMA employee since 2019. But she did do an interview with a podcast host named Roland Martin, where she claimed that it wasn't an isolated incident and that she is basically just a scapegoat for blanket FEMA policy. Here's the most relevant clip.
They all alleged that these actions were made on my own recognizances and that it was for my own political advances. However, if you look at the record, there is what we call a community trend. And unfortunately, it just so happened that the political hostility that was encountered by my team, and I was on 2 different teams during this deployment, they just so happened to have the Trump campaign signage. FEMA always preaches avoidance first and then de-escalation. So this is not isolated. This is a colossal event of avoidance, not just in the state of Florida, but you will find avoidance in the Carolinas. Senior leadership will lie to you and tell you that they do not know. But if you ask the DSA crew leads and specialists what they are experiencing in the field, they will tell you. Demand for FEMA to give you those incident reports.
Now that in and of itself is pretty bad, but that clip is just the tip of the iceberg, and it gets much worse, my friends. But before I give you the rest, this video is brought to you with the help of Home Title Lock. When it comes to security, most homeowners think about security measures like video cameras, security alarms, and deadbolt locks to keep their property safe. But what they don't think about is protecting their homes in the digital space. I just learned about a seriously terrifying new scam that literally allows people to steal your home from you without ever stepping foot inside it. The FBI calls this scam house stealing, where scammers can access your home's equity by filing fraudulent documents with the county, transferring ownership of your property without you even knowing. And how easy it is really disturbing. So because property records are public records, anyone can access your information. All they need to do is look up your information, get a notary stamp off Amazon, and fill out your county form. Like, literally, I looked it up. The forms are free online and a stamp is about $25. The scariest part is that you probably won't find out until unpaid loan bills or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox. And at that point, it is too late. The damage has been done and you are left with a legal and financial nightmare to deal with. The best thing that you can do for your personal security is to make sure that your most valuable asset is secure in every way. And that is why I protect my home with Home Title Lock, and you should too. Home Title Lock monitors your property records, alerts you of any changes, and if you are a victim, jumps in with their team of restoration experts to resolve it for you. And right now, you can get a 30-day free trial of their triple lock protection and a complimentary title history report by going to HometitleLock.com and using promo code LD30 or clicking on my link down in the description. Again, that is HometitleLock.com, promo code LD30, or my link down there to protect yourself and your home. Now, going back to our first clip, I think you could interpret this a couple of different ways. You could interpret it as FEMA knew that this was happening and turned a blind eye. You could interpret it as someone above Washington making the policy. Or you could interpret it as her justifying her actions by saying that FEMA expected Trump supporters to be especially hostile towards government workers, and so she and others have used that as a rationalization to avoid them completely. As she says that FEMA's first policy is avoidance of conflict. Essentially, she is saying that Trump supporters brought it upon themselves. Now, with the way that the media has painted Trump and his supporters, that is a pretty easy conclusion for folks on the left to jump to, and for many of them to believe. Just look at the stories that I reported on of the fake militia claims where people were saying that roaming bands of armed men were hunting FEMA in the mountains and hollers of North Carolina. Claims that it turned out FEMA completely made up. She gives a later example of how FEMA allegedly institutes this policy.
What we do is we discuss community trends. So if we are noticing, for example, on Mary Street, you'll find 3 or 4 homes that we tried to canvass and we were greeted with unwelcomed arms, or people are coming out guns blazing or he's screaming at us, then that's a street we need to avoid altogether.
So, allegedly, if FEMA goes into a neighborhood and a couple people on the street don't welcome them with open arms or come out armed, which sounds like a jab at the folks in North Carolina, then FEMA decides to avoid that entire street going forward. Now, considering that FEMA claimed that they were encountering armed and hostile individuals, despite the local sheriffs and National Guard saying no such thing had happened, if her allegations are true, that could have been a rationalization for the poor response that we saw in those areas. Oh wait, you just have to wait until the end of the interview.
They will find this is not isolated. Again, I state this over and over again. This is colossal. This is not just isolated to Florida. Check out what's going on in the Carolinas. There's so many news articles where we have been people coming after FEMA employees with guns, targeting us to kill us.
And again, yes, these claims have been proven false. Now, another question is she telling the truth about these policies, or is she just trying to cover her own butt? She says that there are no incident reports to back up her claims, as she says that they don't put that kind of detail in the incident. But I'd think that if someone was being legitimately harassed or assaulted or threatened with being shot, wouldn't there be a record of that? I mean, that seems pretty important. She also says that none of these homes were recorded anywhere by address, just general location, because FEMA doesn't include personal information in their reports, despite them collecting personal information to give aid. Now, Martin did read a text message on air that Washington claimed came from one of her employees.
Good morning. LeGros Road is politically hostile. We are not canvassing this street any further. Moved on to North Lakeview Road. Great decision. Thanks for the update.
But note, that doesn't say violence or harassment or anything like that. It says politically hostile. And she says unwelcomed behavior, which she later reveals only consists of people telling FEMA that they don't like them or making claims that FEMA is lying to people.
So describe for me what political hostility means. Is it...
People will tell you, I don't like FEMA. That's part of the Biden-Harrison campaign. You guys are lying to people. You're not helping people. You don't even give people the essential needs funding, the $750.
That is apparently all it takes to deny someone aid or decide to cut off an entire street or neighborhood. Though later on she goes a step further and says that all it took for her was to see homes with Trump signs because it's only Trump supporters who are politically hostile to FEMA, and so that's where her guidance to avoid Trump homes came from.
The important thing is here, once we start seeing a trend, for example, if they just so happen to have these Trump campaign signs in front of their home, and that's the characteristic that's coming along with that, we have to proceed with precaution. So avoidance first and then de-escalation. And that's the thing. Our superiors know that.
So she didn't have her workers even try to engage those people. She just assumed they wouldn't like FEMA and used that as an excuse. I'm sorry, as FEMA policy. Just following FEMA policy. So, A homeowner makes these statements or has Trump signs, is denied aid, and then if multiple people on a street or neighborhood make these statements or have the signs, FEMA just skips over the whole area by her claims because this points to a so-called community trend that the community as a whole is hostile and FEMA is not to return to the area. And again, they don't include any personal information or addresses in these reports, so no one knows exactly which house it would be anyways. She told Martin that all it takes is two homeowners making statements against FEMA to strike an entire area from the aid list.
So, for example, there were two gentlemen on my team. They had an uncomfortable encounter. For example, they were told drain the swamp and some other kind of crazy statements. So I know that house was on this street, a specific street, and I know what color it was. And then if I have another team member tell me on that same street that they had another incident, it's like, okay, this is starting to become a trend. We probably need to pull out.
So again, if I'm on a street and it has 20 homes, and there are 8 homes on that street with Trump signs, and my team has faced hostility from 3 of the homes that have signs, what happens next?
I inform my TFL, my direct report, hey, we're again experiencing hostile encounters. We're moving on to another street. We're not canvassing those homes.
Okay, so now I have to ask this because, again, I use the example, 20 homes on the street, 8 of the homes have Trump signs, and they face hostility from 3 of those homes, which means there are 17 homes left.
Right.
So
we will canvass the ones that do not have the community trend with the Trump campaign's signage.
In the interview, they also talk about homes with purple paint marks, which here in South Carolina is the equivalent of a no trespassing sign. And this is what she has to say about it.
Purple paint clearly communicates that entry onto the land is prohibited without permission, reducing the risk of trespassing-related confrontations. So explain to us what this means, what this is.
It means they can shoot you. If they don't have the sign up that says that they will shoot you, purple rocks and painting of trees means that you are likely to be shot.
That seems like a bit of a leap. She acknowledges later that this purple paint is the same as a no trespassing sign, but acts as if trespassing laws are equivalent to legalizing murder. As if FEMA workers have actually gotten shot over no trespassing signs. Which, I don't know how it works in other states, but here in South Carolina, even with no trespassing signs or purple paint, it's not legal to point your gun at someone or shoot them unless they're aggressing against you. And while we could all argue that the government in and of itself existing is an act of aggression these days, that's not gonna hold up in court. But she says that FEMA has learned that shooting FEMA for trespassing is a common trend, one that I have yet to hear about. And so in reports, they just mark areas with no trespassing signs as politically hostile and move on. Again, I feel like if FEMA workers were actively getting shot as much as she suggests, we probably would have heard about that. I mean, they wouldn't have been talking in the news about people threatening to shoot FEMA. They would have actually been reporting on FEMA workers being shot. Either way, she has been fired from her non-FEMA job as well, and she says all of this is happening only because FEMA allowed a third-party whistleblower to leak this information and her identity. She says that in doing so, FEMA put her in jeopardy, and that other company that she had worked for also in jeopardy. She further complains that FEMA hasn't gone after the whistleblowers who leaked this incident and their policies, but there are laws in place to protect whistleblowers. She further says that these third-party people leaked the information because they, quote, couldn't get what they wanted in trying to reach and provide aid to avoided homes, and so leaked the information in revenge. So really, what she's angry about is the fact that she was doing this, it was leaked when FEMA didn't do anything about it, and she got caught. Now, she says that in trying to render aid to all of these homes, these workers put the entire team and FEMA at risk because these homes were skipped due to safety precautions and not at all political views. Now, while I'm sure this is not the only incident of FEMA avoiding Trump supporters, and she says that it isn't, I'm not entirely buying her side of the story. It sounds to me like she's playing the blame game, trying to rationalize her actions and not apologizing for them. You know, it's not her fault, she claims, and the only reason they fired her is to make sure Donald Trump knows the agency is loyal to him. She literally says that in the interview. She then claims that she's getting horrible emails and threats from Trump supporters, which of course is awful and backing up her claims, but let's not forget that the left is not above canceling people and doing the same thing. Actually, they tend to do it more often. So again, guys, she is the victim here, and she's really only mad about getting caught and getting fired. She claims that she welcomes an investigation from the House Oversight Committee so she can, quote, tell her truth, and other FEMA workers can tell their truths. So I suppose if that does happen, maybe we'll eventually get those reports. Though again, she says that none of them actually mention any hostility or violence or assaults or harassment or addresses because FEMA doesn't report that kind of information, and they don't put it in any of their little incident documents. She paints herself as the victim here, but honestly, while I would be willing to bet that other people made similar decisions in their areas, I'm not buying it that she doesn't have any of the blame. Like, at all. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. People in the comments of the last video said that the difference between conspiracy theory and fact is now down to about 30 days. Remember when it was like 6 months? A year? 2 years? I mean, our timeline here is really speeding up. But that is it for this video. I will follow up if there's any updates to this, or if the House Oversight Committee does pick it up, or we get more information on these FEMA policies or other people doing similar things. I will definitely report on it because, again, I mean, these people got left behind by their government. And I will agree with her. At the end, she says that this has made it clear to her that her relationship with the government is not the relationship that she thought that she had, and that they don't really care about her. Well, I would argue that they don't really care much about anybody. And for her to have gotten away with it until this story went public, I mean, that alone tells us that there were enough people in the agency with similar viewpoints. Anyways, that's it for this video, guys. You guys know the drill for all of the algorithm things. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and happy shooting.